It's going to come to a head. I think there's going to be a general election before the end of January, possibly early December, late November or whatever. So that's one thing. I actually, personally, it's just a personal opinion, I don't think there's going to be a Brexit deal. I think it's going to be a hard Brexit. And I actually think we're probably going to crash out on the 31st. But you know, if we plan on the basis of that, it's crazy. I was talking about this earlier on today. I'm going to tell you what I said, which is, see if I was told that there were storms on the way and there was thunder and lightning and floods and landslides and all the rest of it, I wouldn't say this is how I'm getting from A to B. I'd say I want to get to B and I'll take whatever route I need and I'll change and turn all the way through, but I'll always know what my destination is, and our destination is independence. So I actually don't really greatly care about the route we take there as long as we get there. Yeah. What else is going to happen? Well, we're going to have a Section 30 agreed, presented. It begins to exhaust the democratic process. We can't say, but they won't let us have one unless we first of all ask. And people who say, you shouldn't be, you have asked. Well, we haven't. No, we haven't. So now we will. And we know there's a time scale on that. We're going to have the legislation in place to allow a referendum in place by the end of the year as well. That's very good democratic progress. So I think things are shaping up well. I could say a lot more. Fire on.
I think it's going to be a total disaster for Brexit. I think we're going to go out with no deal. I think that's what Boris Johnson has planned all along. And I think it's going to make the independence to come quicker and have a higher percentage of votes to yes.
Yep.
I hope.
You think there'll be an election?
I think there will be an election, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know so much about another referendum for the EU, but there definitely will be an election. And I sadly think the Tories will win it because I think Corbyn's not electable.
I think there's a real problem with the way in which there's a gap between the Scottish Government, I think the SNP core leadership and the movement. I think a lot of people in the movement are now talking about UDI. They want the Scottish Government to be a lot more legally aggressive when it comes to pushing forward the arguments that actually we don't necessarily need a Section 30. Section 30 may have been a precedent, but actually we can start holding elections, referendums, whether it's a Catalan-style situation. A lot of people would welcome a Catalan situation. They would assume that European partners would see the outcome of a referendum and actually start backing an independent Scotland. So you've got that real tension between the leadership and the movement, and I think that's going to be worrying going forward.
Okay.
So we're the National Anti-Poverty Network in Scotland, so our main concern is poverty in Scotland, and we do have serious concerns that, particularly in the result of a no-deal Brexit, the risks are high that poverty will increase, and that the grip of poverty on people's lives will tighten. So we are calling for every level of government to do all that it can to protect people on low incomes and to make sure that even in the result of a no-deal Brexit, it's not people on low incomes that are hit the hardest.
Look, I'm getting T-shirts made. I survived the 29th of March, I survived the 12th of April, I survived the 22nd of May. As we look towards the 31st of October, it has shifted already. And the fundamental problem with Brexit is that there were so many interlocking promises that were made that can't actually be delivered in the real world. It's perfectly legitimate to say I want to leave the EU, but you need to say what the change is going to turn into. They're still not doing that. So there is a new dynamic with Mr Johnson trying to cobble together a coalition to get something called Brexit over the line. I don't rule that out as a possibility, but it won't last. It can't last. So if there is some sort of Brexit deal nodded through, then I think a general election happens really soon thereafter. Delighted to say I've been confirmed as Stirling candidate for the SNP, so I'm fighting the fight there on the basis that we want to stop Brexit, but actually Scotland's problems aren't in Brussels, they're in the House of Commons. So having more people in the House of Commons, fewer Tories in the House of Commons, and having our guys, I've got 16 years of European experience, so I can go through them on the European question in a way that will, I hope, boost our team down there. But in terms of what's going to happen, the best thing is to cancel Brexit altogether, revoke Article 50. It wouldn't stop the conversation, it really wouldn't. There would be consternation in big chunks of England particularly, but we can have that conversation while we're having an economic crisis, or we can avoid the economic crisis and continue the conversation. That would be our preference.
Impossible to tell, but there are a number of options. Will there be a second referendum? Will we revoke? Will Boris Johnson push through a no deal? I think that's highly unlikely. The one thing I can say with certainty, because he's got a majority of minus 43 and he's lost a record 7 out of 7 votes, there will be a general election at some point within the next 6 months, and in Scotland I hope and expect the SNP will win it. Well, it's always bad. It's actually a failure of democracy when we have to go to the courts. But the courts have made very clear rulings, a unanimous decision at the Court of Session, a unanimous decision at the Supreme Court that prorogation was illegal, also a watching brief on sending the letter to seek the extension. So the courts, sadly, have been really, really important. All we can hope now is that Johnston and his cabal in Downing Street get the message they must obey the law.
Brilliant, brilliant. So, next question.
Yeah, in an independent Scotland, what's the first thing you'd like to see change?
Oh, there are many things I'd like to see changed. That's why we want independence, to make things better.
I think people are fed up. They're absolutely fed up with Brexit. So if no Brexit is not what the people want, a no-deal Brexit, then I think the only second favourable option will be no Brexit at all. And in Scotland, it's what we want. We voted 62% to stay in the EU. We want the UK to stay in the EU.